All right, Gammo Mash for the January 11th Without a Roof radio program here on KZFR 90.1 FM, People Powered Radio. It's my distinct pleasure to have on the phone lines here in the production studio, I have Dezeray Lyn from Tampa Bay, Florida, and Cliff Connolly. They're both members of Tampa Bay Food Not Bombs who were involved in an arrest activity where 7 people that were feeding a community meal in downtown Tampa Bay were arrested for simply providing food for people that needed it. So welcome to KZFR, Dezeray and Cliff.
Thanks for having me.
Let's just start right into the chase here. Tell our listeners what happened from your vantage point. Maybe I'll start with you, Cliff. You're the videographer that took that video. I actually looked at it, Cliff. I think there was like 20 people that had seen it. Now it's up to like 675,000. What did you see and what happened?
Yeah, I put my sandwiches on the table as Dezeray and the others were setting up the table, and the police were already there by that time. I wasn't sure if there was going to be any conflict or not, but it was clear they started giving warnings that people would be arrested if anyone ate or shared food, and that was the point where I figured it would be a good idea to get my phone out and record what was happening so that people could know what was going on. And then obviously, as you see in the video, they literally went up behind people that were putting food on plates and just kind of dragged them off and put them in handcuffs and took them over to the police station.
Now, Dezeray, I understand you were one of the folks that were physically arrested. How did it feel or look from your side of the story of actually having handcuffs put on you?
It's not the first time systems that are threatened, their powers threatened by people defying unjust laws and ordinances, they usually try to intimidate in this way. So I've experienced that before. It's really, to me, it's heartbreaking because Food Not Bombs is a part of my life. It's not, I don't view people as, this is just a block of people that I come and do this deed for. These are my friends, and many of them I consider family, and they're a part of my lives, like I'm a part of their life, and it was really just heartbreaking to have that, those moments that we've shared for years together be threatened by something so arbitrary.
Now, were you given prior quote-unquote notice from the Tampa Bay police that they were going to start cracking down on providing food for people that don't have anything?
Yeah, and I'll explain that briefly, but on Tuesday, we have a morning share at 8 a.m., Saturday is our other food share at 4 p.m., but on Tuesday morning, I'm usually there by myself. And, we share with, 30, 35 people on Tuesday morning. I was standing at the table serving food, and up comes a Tampa Parks and Rec vehicle right up to the table. The man jumped out. Before he said anything else, he said, "Pack it up and leave immediately." And, of course, I refused. People were still eating. People were still getting plates of food. And he threatened to call the police and have them arrest me for not leaving. And so I told him he could go ahead and do that. And so in total, 5 police ended up coming to the scene and took my ID, held it for half an hour, made some phone calls before they came and told me that if I was coming out again, I would need to have a permit, to which I replied that, I'm never applying for a permit to share food with people in a public, city park, and that I would be back there again at a normal time. The police have passed us by like numerous times over the past, over 3 years at our, twice weekly food shares and done nothing. They never batted an eye. They never had a problem with it. So for them to suddenly quote this ordinance and dust it off and try to weaponize it against us so that they could protect, tourist dollars, they stood to profit, I think it was upwards of $300 million over this playoff event that they had here. It's hypocritical. And it really shows the city's true colors when it comes to how they treat and address the people that are suffering the most in the community.
Let's just land on that real quick as far as this quote-unquote economic impact of this playoff game. So in your eyes, from your view, being there on the ground, what are you specifically talking about for our listeners that may not understand, downtown Tampa Bay?
As far as the event itself, I had no idea it was even happening until I'm not plugged into those communities, but apparently there was a big national high-profile sports game and a concert with people like Usher and other, giant names in the music industry coming to play. And they made a huge event out of it at Curtis Hickson Park. Well, there are a lot of houseless people that stay in Curtis Hickson Park, so they chased them all out. They put giant fences up, constructed this, really lavish entrance and lavish setup for people that are guests in our community. And, they use that as pretext to go around the city and tell people that are already having a really difficult time that they needed to, quote, disappear for 2 weeks until these events were over. They used this event where people were coming to our community and could really learn something about the issues that we deal with here And what really goes on in Tampa Bay, not that there's not good things that happen here, but there's an ugly face to what's going on. There's resources that are being diverted that are desperately needed by people who are suffering. And, it was an opportunity that was lost for people that could have seen and learned about, a community that's struggling. So the event went off without a hitch. And in the meantime, 7 people were arrested for sharing food. And who knows how many other people were diverted from the city, arrested, given trespass warnings or trespass from public areas to disappear them from the view of tourists. And, and people didn't get to eat and share with us like they usually do.
There's so much irony to that. I mean, it's, everyone likes to use these words transients, and we don't want transients in our community, but now the Tampa Bay actually pushes longtime community members out of their public space so they can have people that are coming just to see an event. I mean, it's horrible. I'm going to turn it back over to Cliff and try to get a little insight on both of your involvements with Food Not Bombs, maybe a little bit of the past history, and either one of you trying to just tell our listeners a little bit about Food Not Bombs. Folks listening may have never even heard that term.
When I witnessed the arrest, that was actually my first involvement of any kind with Food Not Bombs. I had some friends who had shared food with them in the past, and I'd kind of heard about it, and it was on my radar. But it wasn't until I heard that the Tampa Police Department was harassing people for sharing food that I finally, got my butt out there and tried to do what I could. And as a rather inactive member of the Tampa Bay community up to this point, it was really jarring to see what actually goes on the front lines against hunger and against poverty and things like that. Although that was my first time being involved, it certainly won't be my last, and I think that that's true for a lot of people in Tampa Bay who are sort of finally waking up, like I am, to what goes on around here, and we will be there to defend our friends. Absolutely.
I do an awful lot of outreach and with my friends. I've been involved with Chico Food Not Bombs, and they are part of our community, and they're our friends. When you see something happen to your friends, you stand up, and I'm really glad you guys are doing that. How long have you been involved with Food Not Bombs in Tampa Bay, Dezeray?
Myself, I got involved just over 3 years ago.
Mm-hmm. But they've been serving a meal probably a lot longer than that. For our listeners, just real fast, I'll just give you the gloss, and I'm hoping to have Keith McHenry on the either live or on a pre-recorded and give a little more detail. But Food Not Bombs has been around since the early to mid 80s, and they're actually an international organization that provides meals around the globe for community members that may otherwise go hungry. And how long have they been doing that activity, Food Not Bombs in Tampa Bay?
Tampa has been going on for over a decade. Back in 2004, several members of Food Not Bombs Tampa underwent the same kind of harassment, the same kind of threats, the same arrests, the same charges. They received the same kind of backlash that they're receiving now, and they disgraced themselves just like other cities have disgraced themselves in the face of, really a public that's crying out, why are you doing something like this? Why are you criminalizing compassion and kindness with the people that you should be concerned with serving in your community? So they lost that battle then, and we really didn't think that they would, try to pick this fight again. But they're doing it, and we're going to continue to share food. Food Not Bombs, we're solidarity. We're not a charity. We don't view people as others. We view them as, tied up and tangled up in our own liberation. So our struggle is all, enjoined with one another. We get foods that would otherwise have been thrown away. It's like 40% to 50% of food waste in this country, and it goes in the trash uneaten. We're repurposing that food, and we're serving healthy meals at a time when people are physically compromised. We don't just share food. We have clothing. We have books. We are friends with these folks. They come back to our home. They hang out. They spend time with us. We spend time with them. They're involved in our lives just like anyone else that's in our circle would be involved. So we're not just, coming out there for a special event. I do resent, having, them tell us, lump us in with community picnics and parades and things like that need special permits. The verbiage in the ordinance doesn't even apply to Tampa Food Not Bombs, but to lump us in as though we're just another party that's going on in the community is wrong. We're providing a service, and we're doing it purposefully, very intentionally, in the space that we're doing it as a response to the city, that you're not going to invisibilize these people. You're not going to disappear the problems that you've helped to exacerbate and that you're ignoring.
Yeah, I could speak to the 4 different cities I've been to, Dezeray, and my experience is it's an uplifting and a beautiful experience for everyone involved, because it really connects the community both ways. Folks that are housed with folks that aren't, and for that short period of time, man, not only do they get a good meal, they're around people that care for them, and it's a big deal for folks that are hungry, angry, lonely, tired on our streets.
Exactly.
I think this whole idea of having handcuffs put on you, I don't know if a lot of our listeners have had that happen to them and then to be booked into jail. So maybe if you can kind of give us your view of, being walked to the cruiser, being brought into jail, being booked, being photographed. How did that process go and how did it make you feel?
Actually, what happened was when we were arrested, as I was being walked out of the park in handcuffs, the officer that was in charge of me, or I was in his custody, he was saying, "I can't believe we're doing this. This is so stupid. I can't believe we're arresting people for this." And then as we were brought into police headquarters, like a parking garage of police headquarters, they just took all of our information, lined us up against a wall, processed each of us, and then released us ROR with court dates, all on different days coming up in the next week. And then we were told that we are being trespassed from the park for a year. There was an option for 6 months. They opted to go for the full year for all of us. So if we step foot in the park again, we're going to go through that process of going to jail and being booked in. And so we're going to be facing additional charges and arrests and actually being booked into county on Tuesday morning at 8 a.m. when we go there to continue on just as we always have on Tuesday morning with our food share.
Let me just reel that back a little bit for me. I mean, the police are quote-unquote enforcers. Are you saying to our listening audience, once again, we're listening to Dezeray Lyn and Cliff Connolly from Tampa Bay who are involved in this mass arrest of food not bombs at Tampa Bay. But are you saying, Dezeray, not only did they book you, they say, hey, look, we've just decided that we're going to say you can't be in the park for a year? That sounds like judge and jury to me. I don't know. How did you feel about that?
Oh, they do it to houseless people in Tampa all the time. If they find someone sleeping on a bench, sitting up, if they find somebody with their, belongings stored somewhere, they trespass them. And they trespass them not just from one park, but they trespass them for a full year from all city parks in a lot of cases. So this is one of the weapons that they use to try to ostracize the homeless people in Tampa and keep them out of the view of the public, because Tampa is a high traffic area for tourists. So this is an issue that they would rather spend countless dollars and time on and people power on to, ostracize and alienate them and criminalize them and arrest them, when they violate these trespass orders because they're going into places to get a meal. It's sad. Someone had told me on Tuesday after this happened, someone we actually share food with, that it costs about $200 and something to house a prisoner in county per day. You take 3 days and that would have been someone's rent for a month. So rather than, diverting these resources to housing first initiatives and real meaningful assistance for people that are dealing with mental health issues that don't have the wherewithal to navigate the system without insurance, and dealing with, the emotional and physical strain of being on the streets, trying to navigate that system to get access to medical care, to physical care, and people that are on the streets because they have emotional problems, because they went through traumatic situations, veterans, different things like this, they would rather spend all of that money housing people in their jail cell than they would actually giving them assistance. It's really sad. So, that's why we're doing this, and that's what we want everyone to know that's looking at this story now, because people all over the country are looking at this story and wondering, is this really what's happening? And yeah, this is actually really what's happening here.
Well, I do journalism up and down Northern California, and it's happening at varying degrees of veracity every community that I'm physically in. And I do, Dezeray, I really appreciate your comments about folks getting involved. So actually, it's a really good time to kind of turn it back over to Cliff Connolly and talk about a little bit about, what you saw, Cliff, and how we can get more folks like you who'd never actually been to one of the Food Not Bomb events more involved in this space and advocating for folks.
Well, I'm really encouraged by the response we're getting around the country and around the globe, I guess. On the front page of Reddit, the video I shot has over 600,000 views. There's another video that one of our comrades shot that has over 1 million views. So people definitely are starting to see what's going on. And I think it's safe to say that if they put Dezeray in jail, I'll be there to fill in the gap. And if they put me in jail, I have brothers and sisters who will be there to fill in after I'm gone. So the people of Tampa Bay are not going to take no for an answer. We are going to share food with people who are hungry. And the more they arrest us, the more the word is going to get out, and the more people are going to be willing to do what's right. So I am not afraid at all, and I have hope that this is going to turn out well.
The other comment that you had made, Dezeray, I'll bring it back to you, is the whole, I kind of paraphrase it as cops in the middle. And I'm going to be speaking at City Council in a week or so, but I see this happening all the time, Dezeray. You know, I've been involved with police activity similar to what you just described, and you can see it on the cop's face. This isn't something they signed up to do, nor they woke up in bed, put their shoes on, going, honey, I just can't wait to go out there and arrest a lady that's sleeping with her cart in a park. You know, and I think it's high time that elected officials and people that put them there start to, allocate resources appropriately, but to worry about the police officers. This is stress on them, being involved in these horrific acts. I mean, what would you add to that?
I'm sorry, I don't have much compassion or, forgiveness for police that are, you see what's going on with police, how they're treating communities of color, how they're allowing themselves to be deployed at places like Standing Rock and to brutalize people. They destroyed a woman's vision, they destroyed a woman's arm, they've tear gassed and really almost killed people. And then bring it back to here in Tampa, this is happening everywhere, but bring it back here and into where a police officer is telling me, literally his words were, I have a family to feed. Well, this isn't the only job that there is in this country. It's more important than ever with the kind of administration that's coming in, that people stand with their ethics and with their values and with their morals and with what they believe is right. And if people are willing to compromise that, I do nothing for the people that are suffering by trying to intimate what police are going through emotionally when they pull off these acts. It's high time that they stand up, take their badges off, put their guns down, put their clubs down, and take a stand and, make an act of conscience, do something meaningful to help people that are suffering. If they're really sorry, they would do this. So I don't have a lot of compassion for police in general.
Well, I think one thing to kind of expand upon is it's a real frustrating thing for me to be a journalist and to get quote unquote cops on the record speaking their mind. And I agree with you, Dezeray. For me, I've kind of lived my whole life this way. It's kind of like you say and do who you are. And if you don't want to be arresting homeless people, maybe you should find another job. I agree with that totally. Any closing comments and thoughts and, how you think things are going to go come Tuesday, Dezeray?
First, thank you so much for having us on. I appreciate it a lot. This is what's going to help us to win this. I just want to add that, if people want to come out to Lykes Gaslight Park Tuesday morning at 8 a.m., if they want to come out Saturdays at 4 p.m., to support this movement and to mobilize around these issues, then we welcome them with open arms, and we're grateful for that. And we want people everywhere seeing these, these cruelties, these things that are happening as they increase once the new administration comes in. I want them to use this as our opportunity to dare to believe that we could have something better and we can make it ourselves.
Be the change you want to see in this world. Cliff Kelly, any closing comments?
I want to stress again that no matter what happens on Tuesday, next Saturday, the following Tuesday or Saturday, always be members of Tampa Bay who are willing to do us right and keep sharing food until every belly is full.
Thank you, guys. And I'll be following this story for sure. And it's just a blessing that we have folks like you and many other folks like you in the community that are standing up for those that need help and assistance. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.